Hello, Jordan Sheridan live on a Friday. I usually don't go live earlier in the afternoon as I'm very, very busy doing status quo business stuff. But there's a debate online that's been going on that I haven't really weighed in on. And I have a really strong opinion, and it might surprise you. And I'm really not typically somebody who kind of weighs into, you know, Twitter debates or in media on media debates. I find it more important to cover, the Flint types stories of the world and actual stories going on that affect real people. So I don't generally get into like the pop culture or intermedia debates. However, this I actually find to be very important, and I wanted to weigh in because on this I happen to disagree with a lot of people that I usually do agree with. So, you know, if I lose subscribers for sharing my opinion, so be it. But I'm always gonna be honest and tell you how I feel. Before I get to that, smash the like button. I'll be live again at 5, my normal time, but I'm live a little bit earlier today because I thought this was important to get out right now. But make sure you press the like button. Make sure you consider becoming a Status Quo member at statusquo.com/join. We're at 442 members, so maybe we can get to 450 today. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join, and you can become a member for as low as $5 a month right there at statusquo.com/join. And maybe after this segment, you will want to become a member. $5 a month, or $10 a month, or $20 a month, or $179 annually. We're actively trying to grow our membership so we can get back in the field. We've uploaded and published videos from our new reporter, Marcus, who reported from Nevada and California this past weekend covering Bernie Sanders. And I'll be uploading videos from Ty, who just covered Bernie Sanders in California. So, again, I'm always going to tell you how I honestly feel, and I'm about as outside the box as they come. I generally diverge from groupthink because I think most media, especially corporate journalists, are lazy groupthink thinkers. So I think you kind of know who I am at this point. I don't generally go along with the groupthink and what people, the official line. And remember, press the like button right under this video. We got 50 watching right now, but only 25 likes. More people that press the like button, which is the thumbs up, more people that will see this live stream. However, I think a lot of people who normally I consider progressive are kind of missing the forest from the trees when it comes to one YouTube host in particular, Steven Crowder, being demonetized because he was using homophobic slurs against a Vox journalist. I think I happen to love Glenn Greenwald. I happen to love Jimmy Dore. I agree with them pretty much 98% of the time. But on this, I don't agree. And I want to be honest why I don't agree, because I think it's important. Forget whether you're progressive or not. I think it's important, if you consider yourself just a decent human being, to be on the right side of things. And I think if you don't know the story, you have somebody like Steven Crowder, who I don't watch. I mean, I knew him when I worked at Fox News for a year. He's a right-wing shock jock buffoon. Kind of reminds me of one of these like fraternity brothers who just like say outrageous things and kind of like a bro. And he's awful. I mean, he's awful. I don't watch him, but I know he's an Islamophobe. He says Islamophobic things, racist things, homophobic things, this and that. So, to me, whether Steven Crowder got demonetized or somebody else like Steven Crowder got demonetized doesn't really matter. It's not about Steven Crowder. It's also not about a Vox journalist. If you don't know the story, Steven Crowder has basically been mocking a Vox journalist. His name is Carlos Maza. Basically for a year or two. He refers to him as Mr. Gay Vox, Mr. Lipsy Queer from Vox, a fairy, a gay Mexican, on his show. Obviously, these are homophobic slurs. So, to me, this is not about Steven Crowder. And it's also not about, I've heard Michael Tracy, he's very fixated on the fact that this was somebody in the media. Like, this is a Vox reporter who complained. To me, I don't care if it's Steven Crowder, and I also don't care that it's a journalist he was making those homophobic remarks to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a journalist or a tax collector. It does not matter. There's two separate things here, and I think that's what progressives are losing sight of. Okay? There's two separate things. There's and this is what I believe. And again, if I lose subscribers, I don't really care. I'm not gonna placate to people. And if disagreeing with a host that you or a journalist you subscribe to over one topic makes you unsubscribe, then shame on you. Putting that aside, I think it's very dangerous, whether you're progressive or just people, to have just this blanket thought. No censorship ever. No penalty ever. No loss of profits ever. It doesn't matter what somebody says. It doesn't matter what somebody does. We don't believe in any actions being taken against an individual, especially one with a big platform, because for the greater principle of how it will affect others. I think that's a silly concept, and I also think it's a dangerous concept. Steven Crowder, first of all, is not being censored. He is still on YouTube. You could go watch his racist, homophobic videos if you want. He's not being deplatformed. If he was being deplatformed, it would be a different debate. But freedom of speech, you don't have an inalienable right to profit off of your freedom of speech. I believe YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all of those should be a public utility, regulated. That's what I believe. I think they should be public utilities, regulated. I also don't believe that the government does regulation, because if it becomes a public utility, then the lobbyists just buy off the politicians and the regulators to not regulate or to deregulate. So I think YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook should be public utilities. But putting that aside, right now it's a private platform. So Michael Tracy, who I happen to agree with on Russiagate and some other things, Glenn Greenwald, who I happen to agree with on a lot of things, Jimmy Dore, who I love, and it pains me to say I think he's wrong on this. I think you could stand up against bigotry and hatred. And to me, it doesn't matter that Steven Crowder is being a bigot and being a hater to a corporate cocktail crowd elitist journalist. It doesn't matter who he's doing it to. It doesn't matter. I don't like Vox.com. I don't know this guy, Carlos. I could care less about this guy, Carlos. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant who it's totally irrelevant who he's calling a gay Mexican, who he's calling a Mr. Gay Vox, who he's calling Mr. Lipsy Queer from Vox. It doesn't matter. And I think that's what Michael is losing sight of, because Michael is very fixated, and I like Michael, but he's very fixated on the elitist corporate media and blah, blah, blah. So am I. I hate the elitist corporate media, but this isn't about the corporate media. This is about, do you stand up against bigotry, which is, in this case, is not being censored. Steven Crowder is being demonetized, meaning he could still go on YouTube. He could still promote, hey, go to my website if you want to become a member. He could promote whatever the hell he wants because he's still able to go on YouTube. What he's not able to do is profit right now because he has shirts that say socialism is for fags. He calls a gay person, whether it's a journalist or not, a gay Mexican, a fairy, this and that. So let me ask you guys a question, honestly, to those of you, and I'm going to get to the total overreaction of YouTube, which will probably get me demonetized, but I don't really care. I'm going to call out YouTube too. Let me ask you a question. I don't like Don Lemon. I think he's a terrible journalist. Would it be okay for me to come on YouTube or anywhere whether it's a private company or a public utility, and start saying, damn that N-word Don Lemon. Don Lemon happens to be black and a homosexual. Would it be okay for me to go on YouTube and say, oh, that N-word fairy? No, it wouldn't. And honestly, I would expect to be demonetized either in a private company, or I would expect, if it was a public utility, to be regulated for that bigotry and harassment that I was putting out there against someone like Don Lemon. Let me ask you another question. I have a best friend. He's been my best friend since I was a teenager. He's a triplet. Two of his other two brothers are severely mentally challenged. They live in a home. Would it be all right for me to mock mentally challenged people and call them the R word, which is very offensive to mentally challenged people? I think Michael Tracy and others are minimizing this as, oh, it's just, it's just mocking or ridiculing people. No, it's not mocking and ridiculing to call someone a gay fairy or a gay Mexican or a lipsy queer. It's harassing and being a bigot. And frankly, and I said this in my tweet and I will say it right now, it reeks of privilege when you try and minimize somebody not mocking a gay person, not ridiculing a gay person, not joking around with a gay person. You're being a bigot and inciting harassment. And as somebody who, for a living, covers downtrodden communities, the vulnerable, let's remember that in this country, many gay people have been killed for being gay before same-sex marriage was a thing. Let's remember, in this country, gay people have been attacked and harmed, just like black people have. And I was talking to someone on Twitter today, and he's saying, Jordan, you're exercising identity politics by standing up or agreeing with Steven Crowder being demonetizing. No. You're confusing identity politics with standing up against bigotry. Identity politics is when Kamala Harris goes around or Cory Booker goes around quoting Maya Angelou or quoting the great African-American leaders of our time to basically cloak themselves in their identity, hoping that nobody will actually talk about their Wall Street donations, they're being bought off by pharmaceutical companies, and many other things. That's what identity politics is. Identity politics is when somebody, whether it's using their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, uses that to basically make a case for themselves politically. This Vox reporter, who again, it doesn't really matter to me that it's a journalist. In this case, it really doesn't matter who Steven Crowder was saying these things to or about. He didn't ask to be attacked by a popular YouTube host. He didn't ask. I'm going to thank you for the super chat, and I'm about to get to that because I think that is a big problem. He didn't ask for this. He wasn't using this to become more popular. He first privately tried to handle it privately with YouTube, but YouTube wouldn't do anything. So I think you can have two separate thoughts at once. And I know some people don't understand this, and I'm not trying to mock you. But I think you can have two thoughts at once, and they're not mutually exclusive. So are you ready for this? I'm very for if Steven Crowder wants to wear shirts that say socialism is for fags. If Steven Crowder wants to attack, I don't care if it's a garbage collector or a Vox journalist. If he wants to call him a lipsy queer, if he wants to call him a gay Mexican, if he wants to basically attack him for his sexual orientation, I am not against him losing the ability not to say it. He's not losing the ability to say it. I'm not calling for him to be banned from saying it, but I am not against it. You don't have an inalienable right to profit off of your free speech. You wouldn't have an inalienable right to profit off of your free speech, whether YouTube was a private company or a regulated company. If it was a government utility or a private company, it's the same difference. You wouldn't have an inalienable right to profit off of your bigotry. I think it's right that he cannot, that in this case, I don't like YouTube. They've been suppressing the hell out of this channel. But in this case, I think it is very short-sighted to say, well, I'm against any censorship whatsoever, so let's just look the other way when people like Steven Crowder are a bigot and harass. Again, it doesn't matter if he's a journalist or a garbage man. No offense to garbage men. You know, I think Michael and Glenn are very focused on the media aspect here. And to a certain degree, they're right. If Carlos Manza was not a journalist, it might have not got the same attention. If it was just some random person who Steven Crowder was attacking on YouTube, that random person doing a video standing out about it might have had nothing might have been done. So they're right about that. But to me, the bottom line is, if you're a progressive, but forget the label, if you're just a good person, you don't sit here and say, well, let's just look away if somebody's going to drop racial slurs, homophobic slurs, whatever it is, anti-Semitic slurs, and incite harassment against specific individuals. It's not just that he is being a bigot in general against just gay people in general. He's been going after one specific person. And I don't think it is a progressive or, frankly, even logical position to take. To say, well, he's just mocking him, or he's just, he's just mocking him, or he's just ridiculing him. No, that's your white privilege speaking. It's not mocking somebody to call them a gay fairy, a gay Mexican. It's harassing them, and it's being a bigot. Period. So, it's not tyranny for someone like Steven Crowder. It's not tyranny for someone like Steven Crowder to lose the ability to profit off of that. That, by the way, demonetizing Steven Crowder is not censoring Steven Crowder. Okay? Hey, Sway, by the way, I like you, Sway Ocean, but your comment is totally wrong. Mazza calls himself all those things. Well, let me tell you something, Sway. Our photojournalist, his name is Ty Bayless. He's black. He's one of my best friends. When I'm around him and some of his friends, he uses the N-word. But he's black. A lot of black people use the N-word because for black people, it's part of a lot of their vernacular. Okay? But it's not okay for me to use the N-word or white people to use the N-word. That's what I believe. So I don't really care if this Vox person calls himself a gay Voxer or a gay journalist. He could call himself whatever he wants. This is about bigotry being hurled at him. So I've been telling you, and again, if you want to unsubscribe, go unsubscribe. I don't really give a shit. I'm always going to keep it real, and I'm always going to stand on what I think is the right side. So, like I said, two things can be true. In this case, I think Steven Crowder should have a penalty because you don't have unlimited free speech. No, you don't have unlimited ability to profit off of free speech. Hey, if you want to have free speech and you want to be a bigot, wear your big boy pants if you then can't profit off of it. By the way, if Steven Crowder was a politician running for office right now, and he said the shit he's saying on his show at a specific person, there would be calls for him to drop out. Donors who had donated to him would be pulling out. Is that censorship? So when I say two things could be true at one time, and I think this is what progressives are losing sight of, and I think it's dangerous that they're losing sight of this, you can have on one hand, be like, you know what, for this particular individual and what this particular individual is doing towards a gay person, again, I don't really care if it's a journalist that he's doing it. Okay, I think he should be penalized. At the same time, you could say, to me, the real problem is not that Steven Crowder is being penalized. to me, the real problem, YouTube is insane. YouTube is taking individual rotten apples. And it's not just YouTube, by the way. Google owns YouTube. Facebook is doing the same thing. Twitter is doing the same thing. In reaction, because they don't have one blanket policy that they follow. And because they have an algorithm that is totally inadequate. And by the way, their algorithm on YouTube favors CNN and corporate outlets where they flood people's streams with CNN and other corporate crap, and they suppress channels like this. But I digress. YouTube, in reaction to just Steven Crowder calling someone a gay fairy, a gay Mexican, a lipsy queer, and being a bigot towards that person, instead of demonetizing him or someone else saying similar things, or going to demonetize somebody using the N-word on their channel, or going to demonetize someone calling Jews the K-word on their channel, or that would be consistent if you are hurling racial slurs, anti-Semitic slurs, slurs. That would be consistent. YouTube, instead, is doing stuff like this. This is from Ben Norden. You can't make this up. In its purge, Google-owned YouTube is deleting anti-racist videos that expose white supremacists and fascists. Among the important videos it is censored is Max Blumenthal's interview for the SPLC that debunked a Holocaust denier. YouTube has also been demonetizing a journalist by the name of Ford Fisher, who I believe does great work inside, activist groups and exposing a lot of great in the field journalism. He did a lot of stuff at the Venezuelan embassy during that, basically the Secret Service toppling a democratically elected government of Venezuela's embassy. So I don't understand why this is such a complicated thought for people like Michael Tracy. I really don't, and I like Michael. I tweeted yesterday because I thought the things he was saying was frankly really offensive. And even though I like him, I had to keep it real. And I get what Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy is saying, and you can't, if you give YouTube and Google an inch, they're going to go too far. And I agree with you. And that is what we all need to go after. But I think you could go after YouTube and Google and these platforms for their outrageous overreach, their outrageous overcorrection, attacking innocent journalists, attacking innocent hosts, attacking innocent content creators. At the same time, you don't have to look the other way if individuals like Steven Crowder are being open bigots and inciting harassment. As somebody who reports in the field, I have gotten phone calls threatening my life. I don't share that publicly, but I've gotten phone calls threatening my life. And I hope my mother's not watching. I've been followed at Standing Rock by unmarked cars for an hour, following me every turn. Okay? I know what it's like, not just to be harassed, but to be in person intimidated. But just because this is a journalist from Vox and you're a public figure, no, just because you're a public figure doesn't mean, well, just take it if someone's being a bigot against you. You should take it because you're a public figure if somebody is basically inciting their viewers to go after you and harass you. That's a fucking ridiculous view. And it's also, frankly, an ignorant view. And I'm talking about Michael Tracy in this case. It's an extremely ignorant view. And you truly don't understand homophobia, the full scope of homophobia and racism and anti-Semitism. Because if you are minimizing what Steven Crowder is doing to, this guy's, Michael was doing a video saying, this guy, he's an adult journalist that he can't take someone mocking him. He's not being mocked. He's openly being harassed and attacked for his sexual orientation. That's called bigotry. It's not mockery. It's not ridicule. And standing up against that, Somebody said this on Twitter today. I was in shock. Standing up against that is not playing identity politics. This guy didn't ask Steven Crowder to call him a lipsy queer for 2 years, call him a gay Mexican, have his viewers harass him online. It's absurd. I don't understand. And honestly, I love Glenn Greenwald. It pains me to say this, but I don't understand this attitude where let's be blind to any. And by the way, again, if you're coming late to this, Steven Crowder is not being censored. He is currently on YouTube. What has happened is he's losing the ability to profit off of that hate. So we should cry crocodile tears for a bigot, a loser, because he's been demonetized? No, the problem isn't that Steven Crowder has been demonetized. The problem is YouTube and really Google, because Google owns YouTube, is using that as an excuse to attack innocent journalists who are not being bigots. Innocent channels that are not being racist but are exposing racism. So instead of sitting here, being like, oh, tyranny, Steven Crowder's being monetized, why don't we all go after YouTube? Which, by the way, is probably going to demonetize this video. Who knows? Maybe they'll get rid of me. If they get rid of us in Status Coup, go to statuscoup.com right now. Become a member. statuscoup.com/join. But I'm not going to sit here and kowtow to YouTube. In the case of Steven Crowder and bigots like him, they're not they don't have a basic human right under free speech to profit. If I was wearing a shirt today saying capitalism is for, I don't know, the N-word, or capitalism is for the R word, or capitalism is for the K word if you're Jewish, am I just mocking those people? And the people, I think, unfortunately, and some of my viewers, I think some of you are so absolutist. You're so fixated on the slippery slope. Well, if you go after Crowder, it opens up Pandora's box. I agree, and that's the problem. The problem is these platforms, these big brother platforms in Silicon Valley, are using individual rotten apples as an excuse to go after innocent people. But that doesn't mean just ignore the rotten apples that are inciting violence. You could do two things at once, people. And no, it's not a simple problem. I agree with you, Paul. But I just firmly stand against, and I think it's absurd when people like Michael, who again I worked with, I don't have a problem with, I think he's right on Russiagate and other things, do videos. Oh, he's an adult journalist. You go cry to the teacher. Michael, he didn't do a video crying that the guy was making fun of his hair or the way he dresses or, I don't know, a speech impediment. The guy has been calling him a lipsy queer, a gay Mexican, a fag for 2 years by name. I've seen the videos. That's not mocking Michael. And the fact that you don't understand that shows you're out of touch. And frankly, you're a little tone deaf to bigotry. And you could do a video rebutting me. I don't really give a damn. I'm not attacking Michael Tracy. I just think he's wrong on this particular issue. And I think Glenn Greenwald, who I respect, I don't think having an absolutist position that we need to stand against. And by the way, it's not censorship. I don't understand why people don't understand this. Crowder's not being censored. He's on YouTube right now. He's just not profiting from that. So what I want to know is why aren't people coming together not to boo, Steven Crowder shouldn't be demonetized. Why aren't everyone coming together to scream and holler against YouTube for its indiscriminate reaction, which is basically just an excuse? It's like after 9/11, right? So a bunch of Saudis killed 3,000 people. Heinous. One of the worst days in American history. Robert Mueller, the patron saint Robert Mueller, what he did was rounded up 1,000 Muslims. Oftentimes, governments and corporations use an inciting incident as an excuse to go after the targets they really want to go after. I agree with Glenn on that. I agree with Jimmy on that. I agree with Michael on that. I think this is what we should be focused on. I think there should be protests outside YouTube's building, and that might get me demonetized, and that might get me suppressed, and that might get me kicked off. And if I'm suppressed, if I'm kicked off, go to statuscoup.com, become a member. And if you don't see my live streams, we're live every day at 5 o'clock Eastern. I am risking right now being demonetized. I am risking being suppressed, because that's the world we're living in. But it's too high a price to be silent, as far as I'm concerned. So Saudis, not all Muslims, Saudis killed those people, on 3,000 people on 9/11. Horrific. And Robert Mueller rounded up 1,000 people. And Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and all these people used it as an excuse to go bomb and steal Iraq's oil and kill hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. So I'm not equating what YouTube is doing to that, but the point is, focus on the real problem. The problem isn't when individuals are penalized, and Steven Crowder should be penalized. And those of you saying, oh, he's just a comedian, I don't give a flying fuck if Steven Crowder is a snail. If you, as a viewer, or you as a person, can rationalize your head, well, I'm just going to look away. He might be a bigot. He might be homophobic. He might be calling out by name an individual and calling him these heinous names. But you know what? Whatever. That's just the internet and whatever. Then I think you're a little dense, and I think you're wrong. Maybe it's because I have a really good friend of mine that's gay, and it's a sore spot for me when I see homophobia. Maybe. But as progressives, or forget progressives, just as good people, I don't think you say, well, I'm against any, again, this isn't even censorship. Crowder wasn't censored. He's demonetized. There's a difference. But I don't think you look the other way to the rotten apples and the bigots, because that only breeds more rotten apples and bigots, because YouTube is doing something bad. You know what I think you do? You say, yeah, he should be penalized. He should be punished. And now let's go over YouTube for the fuckery they're doing. So I'm saying two things at once are true. Steven Crowder and people like him should not be able to profit off of open bigotry. If you think they should because you think free speech is absolute, well, show me in the Constitution, show me in the Declaration of Independence, show me in the Bill of Rights where it says you have full freedom to make money off of your free speech. If you could show me that, I will do a video and I will eat my words. You don't have an inalienable right to profit. And if Steven Crowder was deplatformed and kicked off YouTube, I would be against that. But he has not been. So, what I'm saying, why aren't people, instead of fixating on, oh, I don't think Steven Crowder should be punished, and oh, this is tyranny. Yeah, he should be punished. He's a bigot, and he's been inciting violence against an individual. It doesn't matter if he's a journalist or not. It doesn't. This is, again, I think YouTube did something because it was a journalist who complained, but the bottom line is, this guy is a journalist, but last time I checked, he has a heart, lungs, organs, and body parts. So that makes him a human. But to me, the real issue is, can we start organizing to go after Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter for their absolute batshit, bananas, insane response to things like this, for their completely inconsistent, arbitrary policies that are not consistent, for their favoring corporate channels, not just in politics, but in other genres. That's what the discussion should be. Going after Silicon Valley, Google, Facebook, Twitter for basically playing God. But I got news for you folks. Even if tomorrow all of these became a public utility and they were regulated by the government, Steven Crowder would still, if people are being open bigots, targeting individuals, that should be regulated. I'm sorry. That's what I believe. And I think those of you who are absolutists who say, free speech, he should profit off of that free speech, absolute position, no leeway, then I think you're wrong. And I also think you don't understand censorship. Because, frankly, Steven Crowder, I just looked, he still has a YouTube channel, he's still doing his videos, he's just not profiting. And cry me a fucking river if Steven Crowder can't profit off of wearing socialism is for fags and calling people lipsy queers. Cry me a fucking river. And the bottom line is, status quo is growing through membership. We're trying to grow through membership so we don't have to exclusively rely on YouTube. Because I fully understand where society and Silicon Valley is going. And as we build up our audience, our goal long term is to get the hell off YouTube and to live stream and report at our website, statusquo.com. Go to statusquo.com. You can become a member if you want to support real journalism, not the 24/7 Trump bullshit you see every day, but real journalism. Statusquo.com/join. If you don't like my argument and you want to unsubscribe, go for it. So, I think two things are true. I don't care that Steven Crowder is demonetized. I think he deserves it. I think people like him should be demonetized. And if it wasn't a private company, if it was a public utility, I think people like him should be regulated, and his channel should be regulated. 4, open bigotry, open harassment of individuals. And by the way, somebody just made a great point. Steven Crowder is on YouTube for free. That's how he's building his audience. So I don't want to hear it, crying tears for Steven Crowder. What I want to hear is progressives and smart people coming together. How do you go after YouTube? How do you go after Google for this indiscriminate, just in response to some bad apples, let's just clobber everyone. That is the issue. That is the core problem here. And I think you could stand against bigotry, say Steven Crowder and people like him should be penalized, while also saying, I don't agree with this slippery slope. I think this is dangerous. I think this is an excuse to go after anti-war voices, to go after progressive voices, to go after anti-capitalist voices, and we're going to fight that. And there are ways to organize and fight that. So, if you don't like it, tough shit. You don't have to like everything I say, but I'm not going to just be a lackey and just entertaining groupthink. And frankly, as somebody who worked with Michael Tracy, who's somebody who likes Michael for the most part, I think his video is truly offensive that he did on this, and I think he should apologize. And for those of you who say, Jordan, you're playing identity politics, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I cover politics. Identity politics is not standing up if someone is being harassed and openly targeted for their sexual orientation. That's called being a good person. Identity politics is when a black politician, a lesbian politician, a female politician, or whatever, to distract from their actual policies and records, basically highlight their race, gender, sexual orientation, or whatever. Like I've always said, I'd love a black president. I'd love a black woman president. I'd love a woman president. But if that president is not for Medicare for all, I don't care if she's black, white, or glow in the dark. I'm not voting for them. So that's what I believe. That's why I did a video now rather than waiting, because I'm so fired up about this. And I really don't want to see progressives and people that, viewers that I think are normally on the right side of things lose the forest from the trees. Individual bigots losing the ability to profit off of that bigotry is not censorship. Steven Crowder is not being censored. He's losing the ability to profit off of hate speech. Cry me a fucking river for Steven Crowder. The problem is YouTube. The problem is Google using that as a Trojan horse and an excuse to target who they really want to target. And that's what we have to go after. We don't look the other way and say, well, let bigots like Crowder, leave them alone because other people will be harmed if you go after them. No, don't leave them alone. Yes, go after bigotry, whether it's YouTube as a private company or if this was a public utility, it should be regulated and people like him should be regulated if they're inciting harassment. He is inciting harassment from his viewers against that journalist. So it's either as a private company, YouTube should demonetize him, or if it was a public utility, he should be regulated. So, again, you can be down with that, but then say, all right, when are we getting together to organize against YouTube for this toxic other shit they're doing? That's what I believe. If you don't like it, I don't care. I'll be back at 5 o'clock. Remember, become a Status Quo member for as low as $5 a month. Right now, we are at, I got to update that. We are at 442 members. We're trying to get to 500 by the end of this month. Membership is how we grow. If you noticed, we just hired a new reporter, Marcus. He was out there covering Bernie in Nevada and California this past weekend. Ty was just out there covering Bernie in California. Let me ask you a question. You see any other independent media outlets out there on the campaign trail? You see any other independent media outlets out there giving Bernie Sanders voters a voice? Giving Tulsi Gabbard a voice? I don't. So if you want to leave the campaign coverage to CNN, then don't become a member. Because we're not going to have the money to go out on the campaign trail if we don't grow our membership. So you got to ask yourself, is real journalism, aggressive, in the field, is it worth $5 to $10 a month or $179 annually? I'll see you at 5 o'clock Eastern. Peace out.